afternoon. Welcome to Cochrane Supply and Lynxspring's At the Edge presentation. We're super excited to have you guys here today. Really looking forward to the future of the Edge in Niagara being a part of that. Today we have Marc, Charles, and Jeff Kegley here helping us with our presentation. If we could please hold our questions to the end of the presentation or put them in the chat. We'll make sure you get all your answers at the end. Thank you. And Marc, it's all yours.
Thanks, Nicole, and welcome everyone. Jeff Kegley is going to be our slide director here. Jeff, so I'm going to ask you to go ahead and advance the slide for us, and we'll get started. So just to sum up again, presenting, we've heard from Nicole. My name is Marc Petock. I'm the Vice President, Chief Marketing Communication Officer at Lynxspring, and delighted to have Jeff Kegley, who's our channel sales team leader, presenting as well, and Charles Johnson, lead technical trainer and knowledge extraordinaire, as I like to add to his title. And as we get started, first of all, I want to offer our thanks and great appreciation to Cochrane. We are delighted that we are partners and we are bringing the Edge or the JENEsys Edge portfolio and other Lynxspring solutions to the marketplace. So we are delighted again. Thank you for that. Jeff, next slide. So just to touch on things, we've already welcomed, couple housekeeping. We are recording, and the Cochrane team will make this available soon thereafter today's presentation. So what we're going to cover is the Edge. Truly, what is it? What factors have driven the market and us and Cochrane to the Edge? No pun intended there. Why edge controllers matter and the Edge's role within the building environment. I'm going to cover that. Then Jeff is going to do a little dive into the portfolio of Lynxspring's JENEsys Edge products that are available through the Cochrane organization. And then Charles is going to dive in and share some different demos or different applications, use cases with you. And then if we have time, we'll do Q&A. And just on the Q&A, should we don't have time and you have some questions and answers after this or within viewing this at a later date, send them to Nicole and she'll get the answers to you. For you. Let's move on. So, what's really looking at, if we look at the Edge, one of the biggest signs that is occurring in the built environment is the rapidly expanding use and rise of edge computing. And edge computing really began back in the built environment, began back in 2015, 2016 is when conversations started taking place. Manufacturers and technology providers such as ourselves started to look at opportunities, benefits, and value with respect to the Edge and relationships to building architectures and so forth and so on. And we are pleased, Lynxspring is pleased to say that we were the very first in the industry to develop, bring to market, support a line of Edge portfolio controllers that are built on and leverage the Niagara framework. So Edge controllers, they continue to revolutionize ways in which we are offering building automation and integration solutions, from connectivity to interoperability to the drive for more sustainability and more resilient building systems. And their ability to process and act on data locally or where the data is actually generated is critical in meeting today's demand for efficiency, adaptability, environmental responsibilities, and so forth. Next slide, please. So what are edge building controllers? To really keep this simplified, let's look at them as advanced IP devices used in building management systems, building automation systems to truly monitor and control building operations. Really, that's not revolutionary. That's not new. We all in this industry, we've been doing that for years. But the fact that they are edge enabled, IP enabled is where it's new. So edge is really looking at it from it's deployed at the edge of the network, meaning closer to where the sensors, the devices, the equipment that they manage are, rather than sending all that information, sending that control all the way up to a centralized system. And edge, with respect to the JENEsys Edge line, integrate processing, that data storage, lots of bandwidth to store data, do analytics at that edge. So an interesting fact in our industry that Gartner, a well-known research group, has noted that by 2026, which is basically 2 years away, more than 75% of all data will be processed and acted upon at the edge. That's a really telling statistic. Next slide, please. So we look at what are the factors that are really driving edge controllers today. First of all, we've got to look at the breadth of the connectivity options that are now available. 5, 6 years ago, a lot of these options were not available or they weren't proven out yet. And at that point in time, we really didn't trust them. Obviously, IP or the use of internet protocols, the massive amount of processing and storage now that is available on chipsets, and the fact that they truly are cost effective now. If we go back 6, 7 years ago, while we had the processing power, they were not cost effective. The volume of data and the amount of data now that is demanded upon that needs to be exchanged. With all this data, there's bandwidth challenges, and edge devices are helping with that, especially when you compare it to going to the cloud, that type of thing. We've got a whole advent of new software and applications that function better at the edge, real-time requirements by building owners and our customers, their affordability. This is, in fact, again, taking the latest and greatest technology and being able to apply that in a affordable manner. Open systems, open source, open programming, open hardware technologies, edge computing plays right into the power and the value of open. The flattening of the traditional building architecture, truly driven by IP, and we'd be remiss if we did not mention AI and its coming of age here within our space, and the move towards universal automation. Everything is going to be universally automated. Next slide. Benefits of edge controllers, their versatility. They can be used in integration applications, equipment control, small buildings, meters, VAV, unitary, virtually almost any type of application or use case. Their real-time processing and performance abilities, their cost efficiency, their improved security availability, which we're all concerned about cybersecurity today, the ability to scale and to customize any type of control you might want to look at. So kind of, and interoperability as integration moves further and further towards the true interoperability of our systems and equipment, edge controllers play a vital importance. So to sum it up, look at the benefits: speed, latency reduction, scalability, security, bandwidth, conservation, reduced operational costs. Next slide. So in summary, they're becoming an integral part of many organizations' building operation strategies. Owners and operators are looking for faster, real-time analysis of the amount of data that they are now asking us as solution providers, integrators, contractors to deliver to them. They represent a unified element in connecting the whole notion of smart devices today. And again, it all goes back to that flexibility and the robust technology infrastructure that they can deliver. So with that hopefully that gives you an overview of edge computing, edge controllers, and some of their benefits, their value, and what they are. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Jeff. And Jeff's going to take that deeper dive into Lynxspring's JENEsys Edge controller portfolio and their availability through Cochrane. Jeff?
Thanks, Mark. As you said, I'm going to talk more about our particular products and what makes our approach to control at the edge unique and beneficial. I wanted to start off by talking about our brands. We have a number of brands that you'll come across. And the key point here is anytime you see the word JENEsys, that is powered by Niagara. So JENEsys by itself is the products we get from Tritium. And then as you see with the JENEsys Edge logo, that is Niagara running on our hardware that we make ourselves. We have some other products that don't require Niagara, like a 4G modem. So we have other product lines as well that don't have JENEsys tagged to them. So that's what that's all about. So we're talking about the Edge today. So we're going to talk about the JENEsys Edge portfolio. Now, when you take a look at what we've done with JENEsys Edge and utilizing Niagara on these controllers, we've taken your conventional vertical architecture and the various different challenges of different technology, different tool sets, different protocols, different media, line speeds, etc. And now we flatten that down to one horizontal architecture. You've got Niagara top to bottom. You now have peer-to-peer communications, so your engineering is a lot simpler. And it's one tool, greater cybersecurity, and so on with this new horizontal architecture. This is what I call the family portrait. So our product line of JENEsys Edge controllers. Let's get right into them. One of the things I think it's real important to understand is that the guts of these controllers are all the same. So you have the same motherboard, CPU, memory, Niagara. Everything is the same. What's going to be different is one, the onboard I/O count, whether or not we've added some additional technology like a 4G modem or an application as in the VAV, as well as the licensing. So I'll walk you through all those things here through the presentation. Another thing to note is that our Edge licenses are indeed considered Edge Lite within the Niagara ecosystem. So what that means is you can apply 10 of our Edge products to a supervisor, and it takes up one Niagara node. So one Edge is 1/10 of a Niagara node. We have two different series. We have the 500 series and the 400 series. The 500 series is a controller, but intended to be able to do integration as well. So similar to a Jace, you'll be able to add devices and functionality in the field. Similar, you'll have to buy the SMA But one thing that we were able to do differently is we have what's called a device restriction removal capability. And where this plays in and benefits you is, let's say you have 100 or so devices you want to connect to, but you only need a couple points. Well, from a point standpoint, you're at 200 to 250 points, so you would be buying a 5-device license to get that many points, but you have 100 devices. So now you're faced with buying something that's a lot more expensive with a 100-device license. Well, with the device restriction removal, what happens is you buy that 5-device license to get the number of points you need, and then for a small fee, we're able to remove that device restriction, and now you have unlimited number of devices for 250 points. So it's a huge cost savings for you and works well in that type of application. We have the 534. And this is basically the Edge with 34 onboard I/O with the mix as you see there. Now this is full Niagara stack, full capability, integration capabilities. You don't lose anything. There's nothing, there's everything you can do in Niagara you can do on the 500 series. This one again, 534 with 34 points. Similarly, we have the 514 controller, basically the same product as the 534 functional wise. It simply has 14 onboard I/O instead of 34. And you see the I/O mix there on the screen. We have expanded the capabilities of the 534 to meet our customers' needs. One of the things that we found our customers wanted was a wireless solution. And we found our customers liked Monet predominantly. So we've teamed up with Monet. On the motherboard, we put the Monet radio, so the controller actually doesn't have to change size. It's not any bigger, it's the same size. We were just able to put the Monet radio on the controller itself. Now you have the data from the wireless devices coming directly into Niagara. And if you're familiar with Monet, this allows you to bypass having to send it to the cloud and paying a fee for Monet to store it. So it goes directly into Niagara from the sensor. The other product we have is the 534 with a 4G modem. Similarly, we were able to put the modem on the motherboard and not have to change the size of the unit. So it's physically the same size, and it provides you a 4G modem connection. It is done via a private VPN, and it has a great service plan. So for $25 a month, you get 1 gig of data, and you can connect as many of these 534 4G modem units to that data plan. Next up is the 400 series. The 400 series is conceived and designed to be controller, not an integration platform. You do have the ability to add devices in the field similar to the 500 series, but because it is a controller and not an integration platform, we're no longer have the device removal restriction. However, a big benefit that we're able to get is lifetime SMA included. So what that means for you is anytime first off, you don't have to buy extra SMA when you buy it. It's all included. And anytime in the future, say 3 or 4 years down the road, when you want to upgrade the version of Niagara, you simply download that new version of Niagara to this particular unit, and the license that's on that unit will run that new version of Niagara. So lifetime SMA included. The 434 is the first product in the lineup. Physically, it's the same thing as the 534, just with different licensing as described. So lifetime SMA included. Because it's not an integration platform, There's not going to be a wide variety of number of devices and points. And you'll see there on the screen where the license options, so you got APC2 license where it's 2 devices and 14 points of integration, APC3 where it's 1 device and 32 points of integration, and again, 34 points of onboard I/O. When you need to expand that I/O, there is an adder for additional hardware points when you buy the adder modules. So that's the 434. Similar to the 500 series, we have the 414, same product, same licensing, same adders for the I/O, just with a different I/O count on board as seen on the screen. Next up is the Edge VAV. So what we did is we took the Edge 414 hardware platform, we added the pressure transducers on board, wrote some VAV applications, and launched the Edge VAV. So this is more than just a product, it's a complete solution. As I mentioned, we have some applications you can choose from. However, it is Niagara based, so you don't have to choose those. You can go ahead and write your VAV application from scratch if you would like, or you can choose ours if they match 100%, or even if they don't. If it only matches about 80%, you have the programming tool. We call it Pro Builder, so you can pull that out and modify your application to meet your need. We have a rapid integration tool that helps in the setup and commissioning of the product, and I'll go over that a little bit later. And should you choose one of our configurations, again, it's a complete solution, comes with all the programming, all the graphics, so on and so forth. We have a set of standard applications, and then we have a set of applications that meet the ASHRAE G36 guidelines if that's needed. There is a lot of flexibility in that if you choose our solutions, and we've chosen certain I/O points, if you want to change those, again, you've got Pro Builder software, you have the flexibility to do that. Another big benefit is if you send us your job specifications, so which configuration you want, what are the IP addresses you want, so on and so forth, we'll actually go ahead and load that for you at the factory. So when it ships to you, all you need to do is install it and power it up and get running. So that's a little bit about that. Let's go a little deeper into the product and talk about that rapid integration tool itself. So this one, as you see, we've got on the bottom left, we've got an AHU controller, which is required by G36. So this will be a G36 example, showing a couple zones of VAVs and a supervisor. So this supervisor can be any kind of supervisor as long as it is Niagara based. So that means it can be the Niagara supervisor. It can be a JENEsys. It can be another Edge, as long as it is a Niagara product. So then what you do is you fill out the information into the rapid integration tool. Like I said earlier, the IP addresses, which configuration you want, so on and so forth. And that tool will spit out a spreadsheet. You'll put that spreadsheet into that Niagara supervisor, and then it'll kick off that configuration and commissioning of all the various different devices based on the parameters you put in the sheet. Once one other thing it does is it goes ahead and sets up your folder hierarchy in that Niagara supervisor. So that right there is a ton of savings, time savings. Once it's complete, you'll get the as-built information. There is a continuous commissioning tool that you can schedule. So you no separate price, no separate download, just turn it on if you want it. And of course, you'll get the commissioning reports. Continuous monitoring, of course, there is zone scheduling. And as I said, for the G36 applications, you can get the AHU data integrated into the solution. So that's a little bit about the product. It's the products themselves. I went over a lot of information. One of the things we do have is this guide to the various different Edge products. And so give you a better view of that. You'll see on the top, there's the 500 series, on the bottom, the 400 series. Talks about the various use applications, the IO, and whether or not SMA is included, and so on and so forth. So that's one document that you might find helpful. Another one would be, we get a lot of people saying, okay, this is a great product. What kind of application can I write? How big of a program can I write? So we put together this little guide for you. So just want to make sure you are aware of that. And then finally, we have some specification guide for the Edge family also. So if your customers are wanting to build out their specifications for a project, you can hand this to them and make their job easier. So that's all I've got. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Charles.
I just want to jump in, Charles, while you're getting set up, is those references that Jeff just shared with you are available through Cochrane. So if you would like them, just ask the Cochrane team, and we'll help them get them to you. Along with, for Scott, we'll make sure that you definitely that all of you have access to the PowerPoint decks that we are sharing. Charles?
All right. Can everyone see my screen? Just want to make sure that everyone can.
Yes.
Okay. And obviously, since you've responded, you can hear me, so that's also a good thing. I should have probably led off with that one first, but that's okay. So as we're talking about the Edge product line being a complete solution, I'd like to go over a couple of different things here to really kind of harness the power of the Edge as you start to take it on. So the newest thing I will mention that Jeff had mentioned was the 400 series, primarily the 434, which is actually the newest addition to the Edge product line family. The 414 has been around since the beginning, but the 434 is really the latest one. And as Jeff said, it really is more for just equipment rather than the integration power, though it can accept some small integrations. However, if we were to actually just look here at this specific 434 that I programmed as an air handler, as I go through the driver's container, the thing that you may want to figure out is how devices actually communicate in the Edge controller. Well, because it's built in I/O, it has a separate network. And so it's actually known as the Onyx network. And if I were to open up the Onyx driver, and you can get all of these modules, whether or not you have ProBuilder or 413.2, 411U2, and I believe it's 410U8 are the ones that we primarily support now. And so as long as you have those in the different versions of Workbench that you're using, because you may not be using ProBuilder, you can go ahead and grab our modules for free, and there's no additional licensing for that. But here in the driver's container, you're going to, or in the Onyx driver palette, you're going to see that we have the Onyx network that you would actually drag and drop into your driver's container. Now, once you do that, a device will actually show up, and this is actually your Onyx device. And if I were to double click on the Onyx network here, we can see that we have this Onyx 434 device. And if I were to actually hit discover, because you do have the ability to discover not only the device itself that you have, but if you have any additional I/O, you can feel free to discover that as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how to bring in that other I/O, and we can see that we have this here. Now, it doesn't tell you what I/O it is. You won't know that until you actually bring it in, but you'll see that there is another Onyx device attached to this. And so as I actually drag and drop from my discovered pane to my database pane, we can see here that I can now choose which Onyx device this is. And this one here is a 14. And so we have two different flavors of the XM, which stands for expansion module. We have it in the 34 point IO flavor and the 14 point IO flavor. So you can really customize how large or small you want these how large or small you want your edge controllers. And so now as I bring it in here, I'll just go ahead and name it something else, such as AHU IO XM14. Okay. And so now we can see that we have two Onyx devices here. I already have a bunch of pre-configured points here, so I'm going to show you how to configure one or two points in the XM14, and then I'm going to show you some of the logic that is built into it. And so if I expand my Onyx XM module here, and I were to just double click on the points container, I'm not going to go ahead and create folders like I did in the first one. That one really, I do more when I lay out logic or a lot of logic. But right here, you can discover, just like you would any additional point in any other controller, whether it's LAN, BACnet, Modbus, it works the exact same way. And if you're familiar with the IO of the NRIO or NDIO flavor, or the Edge 10 flavor of Tritium controllers, if you were dealing with that, or maybe the Cypress series you were, discovery of the points work the same way. And so this one here, because it's 14 points, it comes with 6 points, 6 inputs, which are universal, which can consist of, if I drag one in, we can do voltage. So we can do 0 volts up to 10 volts DC. We can do your resistive input. So we can actually just read straight resistance. And then we have a thermistor input, which is basically your 10K type 2 or your 10K type 3. If you're using additional let's say like 20K sensors, you can actually configure these with an XML file that you can create. And should you not know how to create that, you can simply email us and we will be more than willing to show you how to do that. Then we have counter. So if you would actually like to use this for pulse inputs for metering, you can do that. I'm sorry, for current. Current you can do as a milliamp input, or sorry, the counter input, which is actually for your pulse counter. And then we actually have your Boolean inputs, which can either read based upon a resistance, a voltage, or current. So we can do digital status. So for example, if you had a current switch or a current transducer that read voltage, you could actually use your Boolean input voltage and then have your on and off parameters based upon that. But I'm going to go ahead and just show you a thermistor input here, and I'm going to name this zone temp. And I can go ahead and now change the facets. And again, as you can see here, we can change it to 10K type 3. Then if you need to do additional ones, we can do what we call a generic tabular view, which can give you additional results, which again, you can import your specific resistance and your temperature if you'd like. But I'm going to stay with 10K type 3 here. And I'm just going to change the precision and the units to degrees Fahrenheit and 1 unit of precision. And I'm going to go ahead and just click OK. Now, while I'm in here, you can see that it will actually read -13. That's when you know something is not configured here. And as you'll notice in my other inputs here as well, none of them are actually configured. Though when you look at the graphic, you're going to see some values, and that's really just for demo purposes. But since I've configured an input here in my XM IO, let me go ahead and let's configure an output. And so we have two types of outputs. We have our digital outputs, which are actually our relay outputs. So these are relay outputs and not triacs. And then we have a voltage output, which is a 0 to 10. It cannot do 4 to 20. And so as I discover again, and I'll go ahead and just bring in an analog output here. And I'll just name this external damper. And as a conversion, it would just read voltage automatically. However, if you need to do a linear calculation, you would have to choose the scale and offset, much like you would do, in your other I/O. So let's say this is going to be a 2 to 10, so we'll do 12.5, and then we'll do an offset of 25 here. And we will do here as voltage. We'll go ahead and change this to facets now. All right, we'll change the facets to miscellaneous, and we will do actually just one precision here, which is fine. And so now we can see that I have this actually at 25% here. So as long as you know how to play with the scale and offset, you'll be able to do this appropriately. However, once we've set that up, we can actually create our logic much like we would in any Niagara device. And so I have a bunch of folders here. I like to separate my inputs and outputs, my inputs to the left, my outputs to the right. And if I go into the wire sheet of each, we can see that I have some logic here for my safeties. But I've got like my fan logic here, and this is all just very simple logic. Same thing here, chill water valve, and my outputs here. So I like to keep everything folderized as much as possible for organizational purposes, but you can certainly put as much logic on a wire sheet as you would like. Now, once you have all that, you can actually build a graphic the same way that you would build any other Niagara graphic. So you can use KitPX and for SVG, your KitPX graphics, your KitPX HVAC, or if you had additional custom images, you can certainly do that too. And as you can see that I do have some values that are reading for demo purposes. So we can see the fan running, chill water valve trying to maintain, our dampers open 20%. And in addition, how do you access this? Well, you access it just like you would normally, which would be through the web browser. And so if we go here, and I'll go ahead and log out. Same way you would build a nav file in Niagara, you're going to build the same one here. Again, as this is built on the Niagara framework. And if I were to log back in, you'll see that you're going to have the same exact layout as you would if you would have set it up normally. And so I always give people the ability to click schedules and do alarm consoles. But if we need to, we can go ahead and get into the config space in the driver's container from here, all from the web. And even into the Onyx network, as you can see. And of course, I have a backnet network here. If I wanted to integrate a chiller, a small amount of, a small chiller, or some other space sensor, some other third-party device. Now, speaking of the 434, we have the 414, which again, as Jeff talked about, has the 14 points of I/O, and we have the different APC licensing. But this one here is just a heat pump application that you can see, and it's using a different version of graphics. You can see here that I have imported some other images from other places here that you can see. And now, speaking of the integration power that we have, let's say you actually built an air handler on an Edge 534 instead. But let's say the VAVs, you've decided that they needed to stay for Johnson Control. So let's say they're on the N2 network. Well, you can have the same control as you would in a 434, but now you have the integration power of bringing in the VAVs and controlling everything right from here. But let's say that this here needed to talk to, let's say you didn't have a Niagara front end. Let's say you had an SC front end from, like, let's say Train with the Train Tracer SC or the SC Plus. Well, if you add a backnet network, and as long as you set up your network appropriately, we can go to the export table and we can discover all of our devices or all of our objects underneath here. So if I go and just click OK to discover everything, we can now create folders here for our VAV. So we'll just say VAV 1 or 01. And we'll click OK. And in this export folder here, we can now drag in all of the objects that we would want to export. And here you would just choose whether or not you want them to be inputs or outputs, or analog values, or Boolean analog or Boolean values, or binary values, and even if they had multi-state, whether it's multi-state value, multi-state input, multi-state output, etc. But I'll just go and just click OK just right here to keep everything set up here. Just make sure that when you have things that you want to be written, such as like occupancy commands and your set points, make sure that in your user service that you have, make sure that the BACnet user has admin rights. If you do not have admin rights as a BACnet user, and there's no password, this is created when you add the BACnet network into here, you won't be able to control your set points or scheduling if need be. But as long as it's admin rights, you'll be able to do that. Now, we also talked about the Edge VAV. And the Edge VAV does have a configuration tool that is a Windows-based application. And you can set up your project for as many VAVs as you would like. You can set them up for the proper IP addresses, the room name, the name of the supervisor, and the IP address of the supervisor. But let's say you don't know the IP address of the air handler, or whether or not it may not even be IP. It could just be MSTP. That's okay. You don't need to put that information in here right now, as we can link that later on. But we have 22 different applications of the VAV that you can have, from a cooling only VAV to hot deck, cold deck, so dual duct. We can do up to 3 stages of heat, both with a parallel or a series fan in our pre-built application. In addition, we can choose space sensors, whether or not it's going to be an input, such as a 10K Type 3, whether you use a Belimo, one of the new RTHs, you can use that, or a Viconix 8350, or eventually the Lynxspring wall module that we're going to be having sometime. I don't know, are we showcasing that, Mark, at AHR?
Yeah, yes, we are.
Okay, so you'll be able to see that when you come to AHR and come to our booth. But after you set up all the VAV information that you would like, you can then actually export everything into a spreadsheet. And so you can see here that it's actually building the spreadsheet for me. And I already have one pre-built in my application, just like any reputable infomercial that you would see on Sundays. Here's one that I built already. Now, once you've done that, how do we get all this information from the VAVs that we've set up into our supervisor? Well, here in our Edge supervisor that I already have set up here locally, I'm living in Charleston, so I'm here right now. It's still pretty cold, but it's warmer than most places. But here in the driver's container under the Niagara network, we have this Onyx Rapid Integration Service. Now, if you're using our pre-built Edge supervisor station, this is already here. Otherwise, if this is a station that you're building from scratch, you would have to add that. I believe it's in the Onyx ASC or Onyx VAV module. Let me just double check. It's either the VAV or the ASC. So let's see, services, it's in the Onyx ASC module, and you would drag this Onyx Rapid Integration Service into your Niagara network. From here, we're going to double click on the Onyx Rapid Integration Service, and we're going to select Discover. Now, it's going to ask us a couple of questions. We have some pre-built files that are in the file space or the shared folder of our supervisor station. One of them is a BOG file that contains an Edge device or an Edge Lite device and a regular full Niagara device of the VAV. It's going to ask us if we want to replace it, and unless we have a new update, the answer is going to be no, you're not going to do that. Now, It's going to ask if my supervisor does support edge light stations. It does, because this is a PC-based station. Remember, edge light is only supported on PC-based stations, not on a JENEsys or other Niagara Edge controller. Now it's going to ask us for a spreadsheet, and I'm going to say yes here. And the reason why I'm going to say yes is because I want to show you that you can show you how to grab this. I was testing to make sure that this demo worked beforehand. So I'm going to go ahead and go search for my spreadsheet here. And as I go to my users, and again, wherever you have this, so whether or not you keep it just on the C drive or whether this is going to be in your project that you set up in the configuration tool, which you can certainly do. And I'm going to go ahead and hit open. And now it's going to ask us for several credentials. The first thing that we need to do is we need to be able to log into the station. Why? Because one part of the Onyx Rapid Integration that it does is that it actually will go ahead and configure one side of the certificate for you. And so I'm going to type in the username and click OK. And now it's going to ask us for the supervisor that we need to use for the access as well. Retype that. And now, with the spreadsheet that you've created, you obviously have changed the names of your VAVs. Well, if you change the name of the station as you configure them individually, if that was your choice, then you don't need to rename the stations. However, we do have the ability to rename the stations from here. And if we do, it requires us to have platform access. And after I click OK, it's going to grab the information from the spreadsheet. And now from here, I'm going to go ahead and select all of my VAVs here. And I'm going to drag them from my Discover pane into my database pane. And here I get one last look at all my VAVs, and you can see that each of them have individual IP addresses, different potential setups here. And obviously I'm hitting all the cooling only boxes, but there's a parallel fan power stage here. And I'm going to click OK. And now what's happening is that this is building the folder and subfolder structure that we created in the configuration tool. So we can see that we have the air handler here as our equipment, and then we have our zone container. So we can see that we have floor 1 here, and we actually have 2 floors. And so you can see here that they're going to be adding the VAVs one by one. Sometimes this can be a faster process. Sometimes this can be a slower process. This also depends upon the computer that you're using, network setup, etc. However, we can actually see that if I actually were to go to the job folder here, we can see that under the job log that it's adding my VAV. It is loading a file onto it. It is loading the station credentials, and it's even approving the local certificate. So think about how many devices that you may have on your network. You could have hundreds of VAVs across, a larger office building. And with that, that could be a lot of approving. And obviously, I'm going to show you how to approve a certificate just for the air handler that we did, because you may not necessarily be familiar with that approval process. But here, with the Onyx Rapid Integration, it does it for the VAVs automatically. So this could save you potentially hours. I mean, hours of time in order to do this. Or if you wanted to set up provisioning to do it, you now no longer need to do the provisioning either. So it really provides a lot of value for what you're using with it. In addition, once we create both of the zones here, there are going to be a few additional steps that we're going to add. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that all of our information is indeed passed up to the supervisor by doing a synchronization. Then I'm going to show you how to add the floor plan graphics here. And then I'm going to show you how to add the logic links that we have already done for you for your trim and response, for the auto commissioning, etc. And we are almost done with the project here. And we have, what, 10 minutes left, I think, roughly?
That's correct. Figure 8. So in
Okay.
case I have a couple questions that
Sure.
I'd like us to answer.
All right, no problem. Well, we are almost done here through the demo. Two more devices I see. And you can see here that some of what takes the longest part of the process here is that you'll see that in the lower right hand corner of my screen, you kept seeing the jobs for the batch rename. So again, it's actually renaming the stations for you in the background. So think about all the things you could have, all the time that it would take you to do this individually, and see that you almost kind of Ron Popeil set it and forget it kind of thing here. And so we've got one more VV. Sorry about the phone ringing. I'll go ahead and make sure and set it up to D&D here. Okay, and that actually is the last VAV that we have. So the process should be finishing in just a moment once we get to the rename here. And it is recommended to do the supervisor station on a PC. You could do something like this on a JENEsys 9000, but I would not put as many devices on there as you would there. I can do like 12 on a 9000, so if you have a smaller VAV job, you can do that. But on a PC, obviously that's going to be it's going to be based upon how much your processing power of your server. Okay. Now that I have this here, let's go ahead and quickly do a couple of things here. I'm going to go ahead and add my AHU logic that I want to bring here into my folder, and then let me bring in the zone logic folders that I have here. So I'm going to drop these into each of my zones that I have appropriate. And you can see here that a commissioning reports folder has started to create here. And that's because once I added the zone logic here, it gave us the ability to actually even do potential commissioning. So we have the ability to go and do a schedule and go ahead and run everything if need be here. And with the AHU logic, you're going to see here that we have created a bunch of logic for you already. So all you need to do is go ahead, in the zone logic folder. In the zone logic folder, all we do is hit link VAVs, and it will actually link all the VAVs, all of the static pressure requests, cooling requests, heating requests, warm up and cool down, and your AHU logic is going to have your logic that you will link from a specific air handler. To do the air handler, let me go to the floor plans real quick, show you that part here. If we go back to the Onyx Rapid Integration Service, we'll go ahead and select Add Floor Plan Graphics, which now then, if I click on each of the floors, brings up a PX page in which now I can actually drag a floor plan that I have right here. And I can then add my stuff on top here. Let me go ahead and just get that right there just for quick demonstration purposes. Let me go ahead and bring that to the front. There we go. So anyway, point is you can actually do that. Let me show you what a graphic for a VAV looks like. So a graphic for a VAV, you can see here that it will actually take the configuration that you have, and if I have values that were actually associated with this, you would see everything here. And the commissioning, you can get right to from any of the VAVs, as well as the zone logic folder as you had here as well. The last thing I'll show you is to, if you wanted to bring in your air handler, simply go to your Niagara network, select Discover as long as you have the ability to discover on your Niagara network. Find your air handler that you have. You can choose whether or not it's a Niagara or Niagara Edge station, and go ahead and hit ping. And as you know, it's going to fail immediately. Why? Because due to a certificate issue, we need to approve it. So we're going to go to our services container, to our platform service, our cert manager service, and under our allowed hosts, let's go ahead and approve it. And now I can go to the Niagara network here and click ping. Go back and make sure that I type in my password appropriately. And there you have it. So those are some quick demonstrations. You actually can go to the YouTube channel where I have more videos to go through all this at length. So I appreciate you allowing me to do this demo for you guys, and I'm going to hand it back over to Marc.
Thanks, Charles. Greatly appreciate it. And again, just to reiterate, we have lots of resources available that support the JENEsys Edge portfolio. One of which is several videos on the Lynxspring marketing YouTube channel that Charles has mentioned. Just real quick, a couple questions is, and Charles, either you, Jeff, feel free, is how many I/O can be added on average, or what's the rule of thumb once I start and adding the extension modules? Is there a number?
Well, so that is actually going to depend on what your whether or not this is a 534, 514, 434, or 414. With the 534, you can do, I believe, up to 8 additional XMIO at 34 points each. So you can have a whopping 308 points. The 514 can handle, I think it's 7 or 6 IO at like 286 points. The 414 and 434 are based upon the Edge APC licensing. So the 434 could handle up to 68 points of I/O. And in addition, you can buy a device upgrade for that, which would give you an additional device. And I think that's 25 additional points. It may be in a whole 34. Jeff, you may need to verify that, but it's either 25 or 34. But I know it's an additional device on that.
But the recommended thing is, ask as you are planning so that you can be sure. Jeff, how about this? Obviously, since this is Niagara and we're leveraging the Niagara framework, the edges are built using Niagara. Can I use any workbench?
Yes. So one of the things that is unique about Lynxspring is that our NIC statement is completely open. So it's open for the station and it's open for the tool as well. So anybody else's tool can be utilized with all of our Niagara-based products.
All right. And lastly, just as a sum up here, remember, folks, that this is Niagara. Same programming tools that you are already used to, experienced with, utilized today. It's a full stack. And it really opens up lots of new opportunities that you can take the Niagara framework to places where traditionally over the years was difficult. Either Niagara was too expensive or a typical JACE was a little too overkill or whatever. And again, I think that'll sum it up. Just the last reminders that Everything is available with our esteemed partners, Cochrane Supply Engineering, and we are delighted again to be partners with them. Nicole and team, thank you for arranging this. And if Lynxspring can be assistance at any time with the various Cochrane folks, customers and stuff, we're at your service. So thank you.
Don't worry, we'll use and abuse you. Thank you. Thank you for the great presentation. I learned a ton today. I really appreciate your guys' time. We are at the top of the hour, but like Marc said, any questions, please get them over to us and we'll get you answers right away. Have a great day, everybody.